Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I will be reviewing an article called Hxllo Warriors Behind the Woman King by Melanin for the Smithsonian Magazine. So I'm going to read this article. I'm going to put my commentary at the end, so stick around. So let's just get into it. Height of 1840 boasted an army so fierce that its enemies spoke of its prodigious bravery. 6,000 strong force known as the Agojie raided villages under cover of darkness, took captives, and slashed off resistors' heads to return to their king as trophies of war. Through these actions, the Agojie established Dahome's eminence over neighboring kingdoms and became known by European visitors as Amazons due to their similarities to the warrior women of Greek myth. Hxllo, king at this time, successfully freed Dahome from his. Historian Robin Law notes Dahome emerged as a key player in the trafficking of West Africans between 1680s and early 1700s, selling its captives to European traders whose presence and demand fueled the industry and in turn the monumental scale of Dahome's warfare, supply and demand. Though the majority of individuals taken prisoner by Dahome were enslaved abroad, a not insignificant number remained in the kingdom where they served on the royal farms, in the army, or at the palace. In truth, Hxllo only agreed to end Dahome's participation in the slave trade in 1852 after years of pressure by the British government, which had abolished slavery. Though Hxllo did at one point explore palm oil production as an alternative source of revenue, it proved far less lucrative, and the king soon resumed Dahome's participation in the slave trade. Who were the Agojie? The first recorded mention of the Agojie dates to 1729, but the unit possibly formed even earlier, toward the beginning of Dahome's existence, when created a corps of women elephant hunters. Alternatively, Queen Hxllo, who briefly ruled as regent following the death of her brother in the early 18th century, may have introduced the women warriors as part of her palace guard. Either way, the Agojie reached their peak in the 19th century under Hxllo, who formally incorporated them into Dahome's army. Thanks to the kingdom's ongoing wars, Dahome's male population had dropped significantly, creating an opportunity for women to replace men on the battlefield. It may also have been the most, with the king controlling and regimenting practically every aspect of social life. The Agojie's ranks included volunteers and forced conscripts alike. Regiments were recruited from slaves, some of them captured as early in age as 10 years old, also the poor and girls who were rebellious. During the 17th century, the Agojie were a battle-hardened, all-female warrior force. Most were former slaves, with only the bravest and toughest admitted into the fold. All of Dahome's women warriors were considered or wives of the king. They lived in the royal palace alongside the king and his other wives, inhabiting a largely woman-dominated space. As Alpern told Smithsonian Magazine in 2011, the Agojie were considered the king's third-class wives, as they typically didn't share his bed or bear his children. Because they were married to the king, they were restricted from having sex with other men, although the degree in which the celibacy was enforced is subject to debate. In addition to enjoying privileged status, the warriors had access to a steady supply of tobacco and alcohol. They also had enslaved servants of their own. To become Agojie, recruits underwent intensive training, including exercises designed to harden them to bloodshed. One of the things that I noticed in the article was how prevalent slave trading was in West Africa. A lot of the ways of the European colonization was brought to West Africa and the neighboring kingdoms, though the Dahomey king, Hxllo, did try to switch to palm oil, but it didn't prove as lucrative, so he did resume slave trading. I do wonder if there was other things that could have been done to sustain the Dahomey kingdom, other things that they could have sold. Maybe it may have not been as lucrative, but could they have survived without participating in the slave trade? That is my question. Another thing that I noticed about the Agojie Warriors is that they were given tobacco and alcohol on a regular basis when they were slave trading with the Europeans. And so I believe that could have been when alcohol and tobacco was introduced into the... Even though that is all the way in West Africa and you may not necessarily be in West Africa right now, it is possible that the things that we were introduced to in the 1800s, 1700s, even as early as the 1600s, vibrated throughout generations. The Agojie were warriors who were constantly in battle. And so that, I believe, wears on you. And so tobacco and alcohol was used to cope. And when you look at low-income communities today, alcohol and tobacco is used to cope with their environment. And so that's not to say that you cannot find yourself in a better environment. It's just if you know anyone in your family or connected to your family that has a problem with alcohol or tobacco, such as Newports, how that is a prevalent tobacco product used, then it's not a far-fetched thing, and it's not something that hasn't been perpetuated, alcohol and tobacco. And so those are just the points that I wanted to make about this article. This article is a great read. Please, I'm going to put the link in the description. I encourage everybody to read the article in full. It does talk about what happened to the Agojie Warriors and after they went to war several times with the French. And so give it a read. It's a really good read. I appreciate the movie. They did not hide the fact that the West African kingdom, the Dahomey, did participate in the slave trade as well as neighboring kingdoms, but they showed how in the Agojie army and in the Dahomey kingdom, those who were rebellious, those who were poor, and also slaves were admitted into the army if they passed a series of tests. And the article does go into the series of tests, and also in the movie it does give you a great and amazing example of what these women went through to become Agojie Warriors. And so please check it out, the article, and go check out the movie. You know, it won't hurt. You'll learn something, and even if things aren't exactly to a T, it still shows the truth about what we went through. Thank you so much. Like, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell to be notified.